Hi everybody, welcome to Northern Pride Live. It's Black History Month and I am your host, Shah Bailey. It's National Pronouns Day and I'd like to share with you that I use she, her pronouns. Northern Pride have curated some incredible events throughout Black History Month and I am absolutely honoured and humbled to be here tonight to host this panel. We're going to be discussing the topic Queer Black Lives Matter, which has been a massive subject for everyone all year long. I'm going to be joined by some exceptional panellists who I'm going to let introduce themselves shortly. As we're talking about Queer Black Lives Matter, it's really important just to know Black Lives Matter, the movement. In 2013, Black Lives Matter movement was started because Trayvon Martin's murderer was acquitted. Since then, it's grown into a global network. They are based in UK, Canada, and the USA, and their mission is to eradicate white supremacy, to build local power, and to intervene in acts of violence inflicted against the Black community. This year, the act of violence from the police in the USA against George Floyd was a huge catalyst for this global conversation about race. Black Lives Matter aims to create space for Black imagination, for Black innovation, and it always centres Black joy. Now, as you know, we are live today. So you can also listen to us on Pride Radio. We've got a special guest that's going to be joining us to give us a key message. But first of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce and welcome the incredible panellists that are joining me today. I'd like them to introduce themselves because I'm all about passing the mic. And I'd like you all to introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, and if you can just share a sentence or two just about the work that you do. And we'll start with, let's start with Chantal.
Hello, I am Chantal. You can call me she, her, they, or them. And I am the founder of a feminist community interest company called Sister Shack. I am also the Young Women's Network Coordinator at the Newcastle Central, and I am an all-round, neurodiverse weirdo.
Snap. Here for the neurodiverse weirdo. I think we could all claim that. I'll definitely share that one with you. Embracing the weird always. So thank you for your humble, lovely introduction. And I'm going to let the two of you decide who wants to go first, actually.
You go first.
My name is Hannabiell Sanders, and I'm a musician, an educator, entrepreneur, an activist, a producer, and the director of the social enterprise Harambee Pasadia, which is the first Afro fusion arts festival in the northeast of England. I'm also produced the Darlow Drum Festival, and I just love doing all things music, and you can call me she or her, and yeah.
Wow, thank you.
My name is Suriel. You can call me she or her. I'm a visual artist. I'm a printmaker and paper maker. I'm also a musician, a percussionist. I also help to produce the Darlow Drum Festival and Harambee Pasadia, and I'm director of Harambee Pasadia Kick. What else do I do? I'm multifaceted. I'm a technician at Newcastle University in the School of Arts and Cultures. So I support students with filming and music and fine art. Yeah, and as a hobby, I keep plants and I build very wonky furniture, which I love doing.
Oh, fantastic. I'm loving the diversity here tonight. We've got musicians, plant mums, neurodiversity. I think it encompasses the melting pot of what Blackness truly is, the magic that we have in our individuality. So thank you all for being here and for so authentically sharing your truth and sharing yourselves with us. I think we're all aligned in that the work that we do is for our community, because we have this passion to enrich and to share the quality that we have. Now, I'm very aware that here in the UK, we have a certain level of privilege. And so when I first began supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, I was shocked by some of the things that I learned and that I found. And as I explored further into race, history, and not just race and history of my own, but also our culture and our history, it really sort of made me want to be a part of the movement. It made me have more purpose to that passion that I already had in regards to serving the community. So I want to start by opening the conversation for this lovely group of, I'm going to use the term inspirationals, because I think we're inspirational women. And I just want to know, when did you become aware of Black Lives Matter, or when did you begin supporting the movement in your own way? I'm going to go to Hannabiell first, please.
I think that I've always supported the Black Lives Matter movement before it was coined Black Lives Matter, just because I was a Black life that mattered. I grew up in New Jersey, and I came from a beautiful, strong group of really powerful women who have always been very forthright and proud of heritage. My mom was very Afrocentric, and so it was really always kind of aware of things. But growing up, it was and growing up with my grandma, who was, I think she was like 85 or 86 when she passed away. So she lived quite a long time, and so we would hear about different things, and so I was always very aware of the lack of equality. But then I had a bit of a interesting, I would say, childhood, because I was always part of band in America and played trombone. So then you enter a slightly different world, and the more you move and grow in that world, you become the only Black person in, especially throughout education. The higher you go, you tend to be isolated. So it was a little bit of an interesting paradigm. I would say all the time.
All the time. And I think that really speaks true when you really want to listen to Black people. You hear a lot of the time people are busy being Black to have even acknowledged or noticed that this Black Lives Matter movement is even a thing, because it is their lived existence. It is their thing. It's the everyday thing, in and out. Well, as I said, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you are at home and you're listening and you want to get involved in the conversation, or you have any questions for any of the inspirationals, my new word that I've made up for today, please do feel free to drop a comment, send your questions in, and we'll be happy to answer them as we go along. But over to you, Chantal. Can I just ask the same question?
Probably the same as Hannabiell, really. I didn't even really know it was like a thing until this year. I know that's a really like ignorant thing for me to say, but it's not something that I'd ever really like thought about. It's just something that's like your everyday. I've been talking about racism for a very, very, very long time, and experiences that happened to me, particularly till I moved to the Northeast. I've been shouting about it on social media for a long time. So this year, when Black Lives Matter sort of became popular, in inverted commas, popular, it was already part of my everyday life. So I didn't. Yeah, I think we're sort of guilty of giving everything like a label and a name, and that can be like quite damaging in itself. And I think I have real quandaries with Black Lives Matter. Some of it doesn't sit very well with me. And now, you know, no, I understand what it's for. That is like my everyday being. But yeah, I don't know. I first became aware of it probably only really properly this year. But as Hannabiell said, you know, this is like my lived everyday experience. And, you know, it's good to have something to sort of attach yourself to. But I also think it can also create a lot of problems as well. So I think, you know, as Black people, we have to be really, really careful that it's not a movement that becomes taken over and whitewashed. So yeah, like I said, I became aware of it probably more so this year, but it's just something that I've always like talked about. And I think the only thing I've noticed differently now is that now there's more engagement with when I talk about it. Like before, you know, I post on Facebook about it and people would be like, oh, that's really bad. But then nothing would happen. But now if I describe those experiences now that had happened to me, I think more people would have done something about it at the time and been a bit more, I don't know, a bit more helpful with it. And, you know, in terms of my emotional needs, I think people would have reached out to me more, and people do now, but it's kind of like, where were you the couple of years ago when I was talking about it? So yeah, it's something that is just like my everyday being, but aware of it recently, I guess.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think often in the mix of the media and the frenzy and the popularity and the trending or whatever's the hashtag, we do forget that this is something that people like us experience daily. And because it's new to a lot of people, or they're only just now investing the time to become aware of it, it can just become whitewashed.
And it's also really triggering. I don't think people really understand how triggering it is. You know, when I watched that video before it became like the next day it like blew up, and I'd sort of seen it and there was no censor, there was no warning. And it was just like, this has actually really like triggered me massively. And then when everyone sort of starts demanding your time and wanting to talk to you about it, like, you know, it's like showing someone a murder picture like every day, you know, it actually takes so much emotional energy from you. You can't even describe like how soul destroying it is. And to be reminded of it every single minute of the day, when you already are reminded of being a Black person, it's like an extra load. And even just me talking about it now, like it gives me like real bad anxiety. You know, it's like it makes me like I want to be sick a lot of the time.
Well, at the note of making you want to be sick, we'll leave Chantal. We'll give ourselves a 5-minute break because our guest is here to offer us our Chi note. So I'd just like to introduce Chi and allow them to take the stage for a moment and offer us their message. Welcome, Chi. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you so much for giving me the chance just to speak briefly. And I'm afraid I can't be here for the entire event.
Very quiet.
I really wanted to be able to just to say, you know, to show my support as an ally for Northern Pride, which is a fantastic organisation and much needed in terms of bringing together voices. And also, you know, the importance of Black History Month, which, you know, I've talked about in Parliament, the importance of telling the stories of Black history, which I growing up.
Hey, you're really quiet.
Okay.
You're really, really quiet.
Am I still quiet? It kind of surprises me because I'm being quite loud. Am I still very quiet?
So yeah, it's very muffled.
It's a bit clearer on my end. Have you got your? Are you using a mobile phone? Have we lost Chi? The magic of being flying in with a message of support and solidarity and flying back out again with the technological age that we're in. But thank you, Chi, for making an appearance. I'm not sure if Chi is going to be able to join us again, but I think the gist of what they were saying is a big thank you to Northern Pride for being such a great ally, for showing support, and also just to encourage us all to unite our voices and come together and show solidarity as a community. So thank you, Chi, and hopefully if you don't come back, you have a lovely rest of Black History Month. Oh, no.
I think I am. Am I back now?
You are back.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Woohoo!
Can you hear me better? Because as well as solidarity and as an ally, I also, and a fantastic organisation, I also wanted to say that for me, in terms of telling our stories, telling the stories through Northern Pride is really, really important as well. Is incredibly important, and particularly in the context of Black Lives Matter, because the great thing about Black Lives Matter, one of the great things is that it brings to it has this intersectionality at its heart and represents Black women, gay Black people, disabled Black people. Everyone's liberation is connected. And as someone who has in the past felt pressured to choose between being, if you like, a black rights fighter and a feminist fighter or whatever, I just want to say, embrace the and of diversity, reject any attempts to separate us, and solidarity and Northern Pride, and may your voices be strong in this as allies and as shouting for Black Lives Matter and gay Black LGBTQ lives matter as part of that. Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much. Is anybody else empowered, inspired, listening? If you've got any comments to make about that, please send your comments, your questions into us. Chi, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you.
Hi, Annabelle. Houston, everyone.
Thank you.
Right. Bye. Thank you.
We're a real family here. She just got, oh, bye, Annabelle. See you later, darling. Oh, fantastic. I think it's really important to just address one of the things that Chi said that I do want to move on to speak to shortly about intersectionality, because we do all hold this rainbow flag as well as our blackness flag as well. But I didn't want to just brush over the really important point that Chantal made. We stopped because Chantal, it was kind of a very godly, timely moment, and we were able to stop because Chantal was feeling heavy, and Chi came in just at the right time. But there is a heaviness associated with talking about Black Lives Matter, with seeing our brothers and sisters murdered in front of our faces. There's always going to be a trigger when we see our siblings being harmed. Often reflected in our siblings, we see ourselves. So just sort of sticking with the theme of trauma and BLM and supporting the movement, I just want to go to Yilis, if that's okay. I'm sorry that I can't say your name with the same flavour that you do with the accent. But if you can just tell us about your experience in regards to trauma and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah, I think I feel the same. The movement itself has always been part of my life, part of how I live my everyday life and how I carry myself, and how I would like to be seen as supporting others that have carry that same weight. I have an interesting sort of intersectionality, I guess, with the Blackness, because I was born in the Dominican Republic, but I was raised in America. So my family never spoke about Black bodies, but they did express, ideas around what Blackness are. And Dominicans have a very complicated relationship with race, which I probably don't have enough time to go into right now. But I knew that I was Black once I moved to America, and sort of the duality of the sort of binary system that exists in America of you either being white or other. Then I realized then that was part of my identity. And moving here to the UK was a completely different thing, because in America I was always Dominican, and moving to the UK I was always American. So then that complicated everything a little bit even further. But I do remember a big impact around Trayvon Martin and sort of that initial feeling of what's going on, and how do we represent ourselves, and how do we support each other. And then obviously in the age that we are, where everything gets, videotape, which is good, and everything gets presented to us. I feel that we have more vision around what that means, and more access to sharing information around Lives Matter. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing the history, because I think it's really important for us as a community to understand our history and our heritage. It really helps us focus our vision on where it is that we can go. I've exhausted you all for a moment, so I'm just going to see if we've got any questions from the audience. I think we've got a few come in, so we see. Luke Matthew Iverson, hello Luke, he says, I'm humbled to be able to watch this panel discussion. I would like to ask a question around organisations. What should they do around supporting BLM and wider minority groups? I can see from my work that many get it wrong. In my opinion, it's due to acting without listening. Well, thank you so much, Luke, for sharing that question with us. I'm going to put it to you. Does anybody feel that they want to? Hannabiell's smiling.
I would say it's really about that listening. And if you don't have Black people or people of color or diversity within your organization, you definitely need to seek counsel from outside of your organization and ask. Don't be afraid. As a lifelong learner and an educator, like the best thing you can do is ask and have those focus groups around figuring out what you need to do, and get some people in your staff definitely to have that other opinion. And there is going to be a big surge of things that look like tokenism, because a lot of people are like, oh my God, I have to program Black people. What's going on? And it's gonna, and you have to. And for me, what makes it transcend being token is the legacy of you doing that programming, or having those events, or having, that Black person on your staff, or someone else having, more than one thing, and continuing with it. So that's one little piece of advice.
I love that. I was almost like clicking as though you were doing spoken words. You said that key word for that: legacy. Legacy, longevity. It's not about what's happening now. This isn't a moment, this is a movement, and we need to move forward. So thank you for that question, and thank you, Hannabiell, for answering it so gracefully and graciously. It is all about diversifying your teams in-house. We can't just stay being tokenized, and if you need us, then here we all are. Ask us, reach out, because we deserve to get paid too.
I guess the other thing I didn't mention is that it's really important to not ask us what to do to fix your problem. You can ask us, but it's not our job to solve it. It's your job to solve it because you're doing it. But we're not, like, a person like myself is happy to be a part of the process because I'm not burned out. There are many who are burned out, who don't want to answer any of your questions, and they deserve that right. And if you find a person like me, you're very blessed, because I'm not burnt out, and I'm figuring out how to sustain. So you can, I'm happy to be a part of that process, but you can't be like, oh, what should we do? You have to read, you have to figure it out. There's like endless plethora of education and knowledge about these things, and the world's your oyster. Pick up your phone and Google it, figure it out.
I love what you said there about go read, go learn. I was having a wonderful conversation earlier, and the phrase silent ally came up, and I instantly thought, silent ally, does that not mean silence is violence, the allies that aren't talking? But in actual sense, what it's talking about is the allies that are doing the work without having to defend a Black person. They're not just defending Blackness because there is a Black person in their presence. It's part of who they are. So that's one thing I would add. Do the work when you're not just doing it for a pat on the back or for somebody else's recognition. But brilliant, thank you. Oh yes, the clicks, this does. I want to come to Chantal with this next question, because you've mentioned queerness. I know you take up queer space, and you are very much in your power when it comes to owning your blackness, owning your queerness, and
not until recently, but yeah. Until I say recently, but yeah.
But I see you. So we talked about intersectionality earlier, and although Black Lives Matter itself is built on a foundation of inclusivity and queerness, blackness as a whole and moving into the Black activist space as a queer person can have sometimes a negative stigma around it. I just want to sort of pass the mic to you to maybe explore that.
Yilis and Hannabiell are probably much more at the advanced queer stage than I am. I've been openly bisexual since I was a teenager, like very, very openly and very, very much so. To every partner that I've ever had, I've always been, you know, staring at the girls with them, staring with the boys at them. So, you know, it's always been, yeah. Queerness is a hard one because, you know, I've dated men most of my life. And, you know, when people now see that I'm dating a woman, I think it's almost as if like, oh, you just like bored of men, you want to move to this side now. And especially like, I think as a Black woman, you know, we are so fetishized. We are so also like not wanted at the same time that I don't think we even register on the radar of being a sexual person, and that we have other sides to us, other facets to us. You know, we're not just straight, we're not gay, we're not bisexual. We are a mixture and many plethoras of us. And I think, you know, within our own communities as well, there is a real issue with being queer and not being accepted. And especially if you come from like a religious household, or if you come from, you know, a certain culture. Again, people don't realize that Black people, we are of many, many different cultures. So I think navigating being queer and being a Black person is very difficult because you get lumped into the same box. So, you know, if you're gay, or if you're bisexual, you'll be alternative, or you'll be this way or that way, when actually sometimes we're just queer or we're not. So I think it's a hard question because, you know, I actually don't have that many queer friends who are Black. So it's kind of a real hard question for me to really answer. But I can say myself that, you know, I've always been like really open and outward about who I am, and I'm like stubbornly who I am. So I've not found it particularly too difficult, but I can see how, depending on where you grew up, how it would be very hard for you. And I think Black Lives Matter has shone a light on us just for being Black. And again, having that sort of like queer intersectionality as well, especially from the last conversation that I had, the panel that I did, where we were talking about not really being accepted in your own communities as well, and also the racism that comes in the queer community as well. So again, you're just fighting all of these different corners. So when you add the intersection of being a woman, when you add being queer, when you add being dark-skinned, etc., 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 it's just like another layer and another community that you don't really fit into a box, and another community doesn't really want you as well. And I think the queer community has a real problem with racism, a huge problem, and it seems to be particularly with males as well. There's a real problem with it, and I think that's something that we talked about this last week, that the queer community has a lot to do when it comes to being queer and being of color. And I feel really bad for many queer people of color that they can't even be themselves in their own community, and then they go to another community where they're supposed to be accepted and they're not accepted there either. And I think Black Lives Matter has probably given them a bit of a negative effect as well, because people are just sick of hearing about your queerness, and now they're sick of hearing about your Blackness as well.
Wow, that's such a, you know, no, absolutely, no, speak your truth. And it's really important that you do, because the people that are listening to this might not have had an opportunity to hear from a Black queer inspirational person such as yourself. So it's really important that we make sure that your voice and your message is heard. And Northern Pride have got a really nice saying, and they said it all throughout Pride season, and it's you are valid and you are important. And everything you just said there is valid and absolutely important. So thank you for sharing that. Yilis, you are like me. You are lighter skinned. We have a privilege that comes with having a lighter tone. However, like me, you still have this rainbow flag, rainbow aura, I like to call it, that attaches itself to you. Now, we have a privilege in that light skinness, which can act as a privilege in the wider world, and sometimes can allow us to be in spaces where other people will be looked at differently.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of your queerness, do you find that being queer in a Black space, having a lighter skin privilege, are you more accepted in Black spaces being queer? Or does it have an opposite impact on you?
Well, I feel like I've never worn my queerness on my shoulder as much. I come from a Catholic family where just today, it's all over the news. The Pope just said about legalizing civil marriages, which is interesting. My mom actually recorded it on the news and sent it to me. She's another. So I feel like I've never worn that mantle on my shoulders enough, entering a black I guess group or population or event or activity. So I feel like I've never worn it so out that people are just like, oh, she's queer and she's Black. I feel like I've been in a loving relationship for over 12 years now. So I've
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Years, lesbian years.
So I feel like that's never impacted me. I mean, it's a big impact in my family because everyone's Catholic. So it's been turbulent times for a lot of it. But I feel like once we moved to England, that was part of our identity, but I feel like we were never completely embraced by the queer community. And even when we did performances on events that were maybe queer specific, it was still kind of like the first thing was that we were Black and that we're performing sort of Afrofusion music rather than it being you're a queer artist. It was always you're a person of color who's an artist instead. And I feel like the access that we have to so many communities has not actually forced me to make that my first identity. I think being Black comes before being queer in my instance. I don't know if I answered your question with that.
No, you absolutely did. And whilst you were doing that, somebody popped up and just sent you loads of love. So obviously, everything you were saying was worthy of the love that you've been given. So thank you for sharing that part of your journey. I want to come on to you, Hannabiell. I want to ask you about doing activism work that is about racism as a Black woman, as a queer woman. How do people in Black spaces that aren't queer embrace your queerness, or do they not? What's your experience of that?
I resonate a little bit with Yilis. I've never actually identified as like lesbian or queer. I just like beautiful people, and I think that kind of distancing from all of that had a lot to do with the kind of I guess hatred that was for queer people or gay people within my community, and I just kind of lived a life that just in kind of encompassed me as a musician, as a Black person, as, you know, whether I was dating a boy or a girl, it just kind of, it never was like this flag. And I think the only time I've ever felt really like, oh, this, you know, like that kind of love around being queer is when I kind of played with this band for a short time period with Hanifa Walida, and we went to the Michigan's Women's Festival. And I think I went twice to that festival, and that was the first time I was like, okay, yeah, I could wear this banner, you know. And then outside of that, it hasn't really been a cushy, comfortable kind of a space to necessarily wear a brand. I never felt like I needed to go out in that way. I don't know. I hope I'm not waffling, but the point is that I think most people know me as a musician more, and as an activist, I frequent, you know, the academy. I can be in that space. I can be in the grassroots space. I can be in all Black spaces. I can be in all white spaces. I can be in spaces where, you know, at a homeless shelter. I can be in Chelsea, London, or Soho, or upstate New York. I mean, I really do have this chameleon effect where I can go any and everywhere and shoot the shit with anybody. I really enjoy, you know, connecting with all types of people. And I think that my activism, because of that, my activism manifests in many different ways. And I think at the core of my work. So it's like I did my PhD, and the title was Protest Culture, Creative Practices, Socio-Political Engagement. So in a nutshell, how do I use my music, my art, my knowledge in service of social justice? And so at the core of everything I do is about freedom, liberation, and equality. So at the core of all of my events and all of that, that sits within it. So because we've never actually just organize this thing or just that thing. We have people from all different walks of life who come together for our events and who support us, who wouldn't necessarily frequent the same spaces, but because we frequent all of those spaces, people come together and they're able to learn. So we're able to create this really wonderful community intimacy. And then that presents us a platform to, as activists, as musicians, we have a platform to actually to do something with those people as they come together. And so I find myself feeling really proud and privileged to have the capacity to actually play with energies, play with people, and to raise issues of race and sexism and all kinds of things, LGBT issues, but it's not really in your face because we create events and activities that create a really warm, loving environment. And then people are able to, you know, manifest and their different ideas around learning how to actualize their true potential by being empowered in the space that we create. I hope that answers your question. Maybe I hope not.
Absolutely. The first thing you said was really interesting, actually, that you've never sort of worn your queerness in those spaces. And I don't know if that's a conscious decision because you're aware of how that might be perceived, or a subconscious decision. But I think it's absolutely beautiful the way you've been able to create a space that is open for all, that's intimate and without bias, so that you can be, you know, all up in your magic and sharing the vibes and manifesting all of your, you know, Black excellence and all of that spirit, and sharing it and bringing people in with that. So thank you so much for, you know, letting us into your world and what you do, because I think that will add so much value to the people who are either sat at home, hopefully comfortable in their favorite hoodie on their sofa, just relaxing because it's freezing outside, especially if you're in the UK and it's dark nights early now. So I think what you said was really warm and uplifting. So thank you.
You know what? I was going to say that I agree. I think it's both unconscious and conscious. It was a conscious thing. And I think I resonate with Tel quite a lot in regards to like the scene here didn't feel so supportive of myself, you know, the queer scene. I definitely felt isolated from that scene. And we have a lot of queer women who come and support ourselves and our events, and we don't necessarily advertise our things as, you know, LGBT specific, but like those people find that space in our events, but we don't feel necessarily a part of that. Those scenes is either really white male or the other side of it is very cliquey white women, you know, like, so we don't feel necessarily accepted in those scenes. I don't personally.
Wow. Well, now is the time. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Pride Radio. We're here with Northern Pride Live. So now's the time to start promoting, bringing those communities together. I believe that we have another question as well. So I'm just going to head to the questions and see if I can read this. I don't have my glasses on, so you might have to bear with me. But it says, and it's from Caden. So thank you, Caden. As a white transgender teacher in a small Minnesota town, I'm blessed to work in a charter school that does have racial diversity, with our director graduating from an HBU. I've been working to try and bring more intersectional resources, but feel like oftentimes the fact that only white transgender males are safe to be out is a hard topic to address. We do better when talking about supporting students from either community, but I am wondering about ideas or resources for how to bring the stories of the Black trans youth that I know who are in our community into the classroom, even when they aren't at a point where speaking for themselves is a good or a safe option for them. So trying to navigate the line between not speaking for them whilst also trying to leverage the privilege to have their benefit. Wow, Caden, that's brilliant that you have, searched and reflected inside of yourself and asked yourself the question, how can you use your privilege to help somebody else? So I'm just going to put it to the group and just say, has anyone got any ideas? How can we advise?
It's a hard one.
It's a tricky one, because especially when you have an issue of safety. I just want to make
not transgender here as well. For me, that's a really hard question, because then I'm speaking on something that on behalf of someone almost, it's like a hard, it's hard.
There's the idea of that. Sorry. There's this idea around, like, if we support the people that are, or if we uplift the people that are furthest on the edges or the most marginalized, if we give them a platform and we support them most, then that means that everyone above that hierarchy of disenfranchised or, moved to the side, then those people will be supported as well within the community. So I think there's a difference between saying, I feel comfortable to speak and be open in supporting everyone in my community, but kind of not saying it's just for whites or it's just for Blacks. It's kind of just saying, if you're including everyone in this community and you're saying, I'm open and free and I can discuss this, or I can help you in whatever way you can and feel comfortable to speak to me, that even that as a start will support those communities. You don't have to be their voice to support them. I think our intersectionalities are the places where we have power to support other communities that might not have share the same voice as we do. But if you're open enough to have those conversations, even people that might not be comfortable in having those conversations yet, they are there listening. So that's a first step.
Wow.
And I think don't shy away from sharing the material. Like, don't shy away from not talking about it, because yes, it's true that white transgender folk are, can be more safer perhaps, but like, just bring whatever material, and there's loads. Oh my God, this Black Lives Matter movement just like opened up a crazy encyclopedia of knowledge and information. I'm sure if you Google any kind of literature around transgender or Black anything, it'll pop up. And so just bring that literature to your class. I also went to an HBCU, Norfolk State, shout out Spartan Legion. And I think that, just don't be afraid of bringing that information. It's also that topic of like a lot of white folks who are like waking up are like, well, I want to speak on this, but it's not my role. It's like, yes, it is your role. Like, yes, it is. Yes, don't be scared. Say it. Talk about it. It will feel uncomfortable, but if you create, you know, a safe space for it, then it's okay. And you have to talk about it. Don't shy away from these things. Just do it. But your intentions have to be very loving, and it has to be authentic, and you have to have care. And I think the biggest thing, the biggest word for the century, it should be care. Care, care, care. And I think when you do things with care, then you can't go wrong. And if you do go wrong, people are willing to kind of help correct and steer you in the right direction if your intentions are kind and careful. Yeah.
And also as well, you have to ask yourself, why are you scared to speak out? You know, why would you be scared to speak out? Because as you know, as a white person, you already have that privilege of people probably believing you for a start. And if they don't, you probably won't face the same sort of aggression that we get when we try to assert ourselves. So actually, if you're worried about the backlash that comes along with it, I can guarantee you that it won't really be that bad, and you will make much more a difference than we can. And you know, you're not speaking for someone by telling the truth. As long as you're not telling someone else their truth, then you are not speaking on behalf of someone. And I think if you're already thinking like this, then it's clearly something that you want to say, and you should just say it and don't worry about the consequences, because I think that's an issue that we have. You know, if it's a difference between maybe you losing your job, then that's an issue. You know, if it's going to cause you harm or it's going to cause you distress or anything, then don't do it, because you know you have to look after yourself as well and your own well-being. But these are stories and things that need to be told, and if you don't do it for us, then it's going to take us a long time to do it ourselves, and you have much more clout than we have. So as long as you're educated and informed about it, then just do it.
And the thing about that you just said about if you're going to lose your job, I want to say one thing about that. And I think that we really have to look at the idea of authentic good, practicing authentic good. So if you're in a situation where everybody and their grandma are not benefiting from it, you need to remove yourself, because that's the root of all of our problems. People thinking it's okay to participate in things that are not authentically good for everybody. And I think so that's really important.
I think too many people are really fearful of consequences of things, because you know, if we didn't make big consequences, we wouldn't have change that we have now. So, you know, I've always said that if I really don't like something, I would leave. If it doesn't sit with me morally, I won't do it. And I think sometimes you have to take a step and go, actually, if I do lose my job, like, how bad will it be? You know, I guess I've got a privilege in terms of if I've got a job that I don't particularly like, I can probably leave it because financially I'll probably be okay. And it is easy for me to just say, well, if you don't want to do it, just leave the job. But at the same time, if you can take a hit, take it, because you'll do better on in the long run. And I think that as activists, especially as activists, you know, there are some things that we have to take a hit, and I will happily take that hit every day. You know, if I see an injustice, I will just have to say it, and if it means that I'm not somewhere anymore, I'm not meant to be there. Because if people can't listen to what you're saying and accept it, then, and especially if it's something, you know, that's something as big as this, you know, if you're talking about a black man's life, the difference between necessarily someone being alive and someone being dead, how can that stick with you morally if you don't do anything about it?
Didn't someone say that someone made a post recently that said everybody and then against racism? So right now is a time where we're actually all together. So everybody should feel like we're on a big team working against and fighting for. So now's the perfect time to kind of leave and disengage with negative, toxic things, because we're all on this big team. And soon we will transcend this race malarkey, and then it will just be normal creatures roaming the earth, right? Yay!
And people will fight for you. You know, if you see that someone's lost their job because of something that's happened, now with what's happening in this global movement, people will stick up for you and help you. They'll crowdfund for you. If you're worthy of it, in terms, if you do something for other people, it will come back to you. And you know, if as this person, if they do end up speaking out for Black trans people and they happen to like lose their job, or if they happen to have a backlash, And just know that like the Black community would be behind you and they would support you, and you will be invited to the barbecue like all day long.
All day long. You are coming to the barbecue.
Yep.
I know you're in Minnesota.
Grandma's
so
making you that chicken. You are there.
Barbecues. Chantal's getting you some jerk chicken.
Yeah, I'm serving you all that hot sauce. You know, that Ancona, that sriracha. It's all at the table. I promise.
Chantal is bringing you her sriracha, so
Yep.
I hope is ready for the jerk chicken, sriracha sauces, all the flavors. Thank you for consolidating those points. You know, Chantal, you mentioned if it's harmful, don't do it. If it's going to be a risk to your life, if you're an imminent risk, then of course don't speak out. But we have to have integrity when it comes to our activism. We have to do things from a place of compassion. And Hannabiell said there is power in our compassion. We don't have to speak for somebody. Speaking for somebody is not synonymous necessarily, or does not equate to support. Mm-hmm. Speaking to somebody, perhaps, showing care authentically. These are the things that are going to empower individuals, empower communities to then be able to raise up and speak for themselves and use their own voice. So just remember that, you know, with your light, with your warmth, with your kindness, with your understanding, with your empathy, with your listening ears. My favourite saying from my Jamaican side of my family is that God's give us a clue and he's give us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So if we can open ourselves up to listen twice as much as we speak, then we're moving towards the right direction in terms of solidarity. As we discussed that, and I think that was a beautiful discussion, I just want to finish off on this question, because we sort of touched on it as we were helping Caden. So thank you, Caden, again for your question. But I think it was Chantal, you said that Black Lives Matter share stories about queerness. They're heavily into intersectionality.
I think that might have been Hannabiell, actually, wasn't it?
I'm not sure if you or Hannabiell have said it, but it was in that plethora of amazingness that we had. I just want to ask, and I just want us to understand a little bit about why it's so important for movements like Black Lives Matter to centre and focus queer stories and queer voices. I love the nodding. Yes, they should.
You know, we're fighting it from many different angles. It's not just from, you know, if you are a white person, and I'm talking about, you know, maybe not a religious white person, or, you know, you will be accepted in a lot more places than we are. And I think the queer community needs to step up its game in terms of intersectionality, definitely, you know, and I'm not just talking about people of color. I'm also talking about women, disabled people as well. It seems to have this vision of that it's just this lovely little, you know, pride queer umbrella of like flags, and that it's all like loving and happy, and we all love each other, and we, you know, we come together and dance to Britney Spears, and, you know, it's a very white male movement. And I think, you know, like when you talk about like on marches, you know, and I think we've forgotten the history of where pride began. And it's now just become this commercial party thing, when actually, you know, you've got communities like the Black community or Asian community who are struggling every day with their queerness because we're not accepted by everyone. So I think, you know, we need to address racism within the queer community massively, like face that head on, because when we spoke last week about, I think it was mainly to the men, we were talking about things like Grindr and all these apps where you've got people saying like, no, no blacks, no Asians, no this and no that. That is not acceptable, but it's just so open. Like it boggles my mind that this is like, you know, because it's like going back to like London again in the 50s, where it would say things in the windows. Like, how is this still possible in the community that we're all supposed to be in this together, but we're not in this together in that community at all? And as someone who probably looks, you know, to look at me, you could probably see that I'm quite queer. I've got like short hair. I've got like the stereotypes of being queer. Tattoos, piercings, or whatever. But not everyone in the community looks like that. And I think that we need to just center pride and refocus it on encompassing everyone, and to understand that within our own communities as well, we're struggling. In the Black community, we're really struggling with being queer because it's still seen as a massive taboo. And yeah, I think, with Hannabiell talking about how whether it's conscious or unconscious, that, you won't assert yourself as a queer person. Not that you should have to, but I feel like, I don't care about telling anyone that I'm queer, or that I am this or that. But I know that within our community, that can be a real big problem. And your life can be at risk. And that is something that I think people don't realize in our community. It can be a massive risk to be a Black queer person or a Black trans person. Our safety is already compromised by just being Black. So to add all of these other things on top of that as well, but without the help and support of our community who are being racist to us as well, this racism needs to be called out massively. And I don't think it is, because people assume that every queer person loves each other. And I just want to let everyone know that every queer person doesn't love each other, and they're not all nice, and it's not all rainbow flags and Nando's chicken. Like, we are suffering out here. And I say we as a collective.
Yeah, you've completely just sort of succinctly explained exactly why UK Black Pride exists. I've been educations officer for UK Black Pride for the last I'm coming into my 4th year now. And the work that we do as part of UK Black Pride is because people in our community aren't always safe at home. They aren't always safe with their family that share their blood. We choose our family at UK Black Pride, and we choose to embrace diversity. We choose to embrace our siblings who might not have had an opportunity to feel love or to feel accepted, and may not even had an opportunity to really explore their culture because of their queerness. There can sometimes be a block between understanding your Blackness and your queerness, and actually, is it okay to own both of those intersections? Is it okay to be both? I know a lot of queer Black people have often asked themselves that question, and UK Black Pride says yes, absolutely. Be completely 100% authentically who you are, because there is a place for you, and although there will be a challenge, there'll be a reward at the end, because we're family. You're all fantastic, incredible individuals who spend your time, your energy, your effort, your intellect, your inspirationalness, your gorgeousness on sharing your light with the community. And you've exemplified that perfectly this evening. So thank you for being here. Just as a final word from you all, if I could trouble you to ask you this question, and I'm going to be completely transparent. Whenever I get asked this question, a chip slightly does appear on my shoulder, and I do sort of just get a little bit more of like, but I'm going to ask you now, because I feel like this is a safe space for sisters, and I feel like you're going to help me in answering this question whenever somebody asks me. So the question is, if you've got one piece of advice to a white person, what are we going to say to a white person in regards to BLM, racism, privilege, support? What's the message? I'm going to start with Hannabiell, because I can see your eyes and you're like, I've got to tell these people my message.
Welcome to the ride. Buckle up your seatbelts. Gonna be a long one.
Yeah, just a final message,
Oh dear. Final message. Well, I was serious about that, but probably the key to unlocking hatred and to fully actualizing is looking from within. So if you want to find the answers, look within find out, start at home, start with yourself, find out, get in touch, get in love, fall in love with yourself, and figure those things out, and figure out where your prejudices are, figure out where you were misguided, or find out, try to look at some of the conditioning and some of the traditions in which we kind of adopted, but actually it's just lots of bad practice. Look within and start from that place. Start with who you are. And if you feel like, I'm not racist, or I'm not involved in anything, like even myself as a Black woman, I probably also participate in capitalism and oppression if I buy something from, so like we're all a part of this in some way. So just start from within, and I really mean that, and that will help with figuring things out, but also with helping to figure out you fully actualizing. And be really clear about what kinds of things in your life are you unhappy with. So that also is part of it. And as an activist, the work comes from here. So if you realize that you are spewing hatred as much as the people that you're trying to, say are bad, then you're really actually just participating in this vicious cycle. So we all really have to just look within. And that's my little advice.
Oh, I love that. I say as one of the mantras for my coaching practice is start within and you won't go without. And I think that's a beautiful sentiment. You really need to look at yourself first. Have you got an unconscious bias? Is there a feeling in your stomach, in your throat, in your heart? Do you have empathy? Where does your energy take you when you're confronted with these situations, and deal with that? So thank you. You put that so beautifully and elegantly. I almost had a lump in my throat chakra. Emotion just there. So thank you so much, Hannabiell. Chantal, are you ready to take your moment, your message, your advice for white people, please?
Please just stop rewriting our history and our narrative and belittling our experiences, because it's not even infuriating, it's just really upsetting and really degrading to us. If we're trying to tell you something, don't call us aggressive, don't call us militant, don't call us, we've got a chip on our shoulder, that we are just overreacting, because we're not. This is our every lived experience. We wake up like this every single minute of the day. Whatever day it is, whatever it is, somewhere is waking up Black, and we are marginalized, and we're traumatized. We're absolutely traumatized, and we need help, and we need you to just listen without trying to rewrite and tell us who we are and to tell us how to be. And just be mindful that your Black friend that you're asking the same question that they've probably been asked 10 times doesn't necessarily want to speak to you today, and doesn't necessarily want to talk to you about it, and just respect them, but also know that they still love you, and they just need you to just take a step back and understand what's going on. So really, my takeaway message is, please don't rewrite our narrative, please don't belittle our experiences, and just look after our emotional well-being, please.
And she even said please at the end, just to add a bit of courtesy. It's beautiful to hear you talk about us so authentically. It's true. We just want to be heard. We just want to be believed. We just want to be respected. Like Chantal said, we love you. It's good. It's okay. We're cool. We're chill, but we're still friends. But perhaps give us a break for a minute and let us breathe for a minute. So thank you, Chantal. Yilis, are you ready for your moment?
Yeah.
At least.
I'm going to quote Martin Luther King. Racism is a Black man's burden and a white man's shame. If any interaction you're having as a white person with any other person, and that interaction is not carrying love within it, and just turn around and walk in the opposite direction. And that goes with anyone. If you're having any interaction with anyone in the street and it's not within your love circle, your love bubble, then just give yourself some time, meditate on it, and step away. I feel like there has been quite a lot of it being Black people in the forefront explaining why things are happening, or why we're in the state, or why we are going through these things today around Black Lives Matter, around, you know, everything that's, you know, weighing us down. And I feel like it's our burden, because there isn't the care within, you know, white people to come to the table and understand, and there isn't enough understanding on that on that side of things. And everything's there for them to understand. So if you come to if you're coming up to any person and you're not coming with love within your bubble, just walk away.
So we're asking people to come with love and compassion, or don't come at all.
Yeah.
Like Daisy said, either love me or leave me alone.
Come on now, talk about it.
just walk away from the situation.
Yeah. Yilis, Hannabiell, Chantal, I have been absolutely humbled and honoured to have shared this time with you. So thank you for being part of Black History Month, and not just Black History Month, but part of our Black history, part of our existence. Thank you for the work that you do, the legacy that you're creating. I hope that my children, if I ever get there, my grandchildren, can be inspired by women like you. So thank you for the work.
Having an all-women's panel. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I feel like we're the two better Spice Girls. Thank you, everybody who's listened at home. I hope that you have enjoyed our conversations. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, either one of those, whichever one you want to do. We are live. I am going to make sure that all of the social handles for these three lovely ladies is going to be shared down below. Feel free to keep sending in your comments, keep sending in your questions and your support for Northern Pride. Join Northern Pride for more Black History Month content. We've got loads coming up, so stay close to social media, and we will see you again soon. Have a wonderful, wonderful now. Thank you for joining us. Remember to stay in a peaceful, loving vibration, and that we are all one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.